Good morning, students. Welcome back to another video session on the topic listening skills. If you remember, in our previous classes, we discussed about communication, an overview of communication. Then we talked about the barriers which really affect in creating a right impact with our communication. In this particular chapter, we are going to emphasize on listening. Before we are going to talk about this topic in detail, let us understand that why are we discussing or why listening is so important. Whenever we talk about communication skills, in communication skill, there is an equal importance given to oral as well as written. Now, when we talk about oral communication, it is, yes, very, very important skill. Why is it important? Because people are going to judge your skills, your knowledge, and your attitudinal aspect, that is your thought, the kind of idea that is provoked by your mind, everything, the way you're going to present it, the way you're going to speak. Similarly, they also expect that you should be a good listener so that you can answer to their question or query. You can also understand the importance of the speaker's point of view. In our examination system, we judge the skills that are gained by the student during their course time with the help of their assignments, with the help of their project work that they complete, and also with their written examination. So therefore, it becomes very important to understand the importance of writing skills. Similarly, if we really want to improve our writing skills, you have to read a lot, and regular reading can help you in honing your skills and knowledge. So, when we talk about communication skills, we need to remember that we have to work out on listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And you cannot give any excuse saying that my listening skills are okay, my speaking skills are okay, so I need not worry on my writing and reading skills. You are going to commit a big crime if you do so, because as a future manager, you may have to write lot many proposals, or even you may have to present a report. Many a times you have to read and analyze lot many things. Please remember, there are jobs wherein people are getting lot and hugely paid just because of to interpret and to analyze. So therefore, it becomes very important for you all to work out on listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. In the upcoming chapters, we are going to work out on these skills. And today we are going to focus on the first skill, that is listening, which is an important part of communication. Now, what are the learning objectives or what are the learning outcomes that you people are going to get through this particular session that we are going to look at? When we talk about listening skill, there are certain basic outcomes. You need to understand the significance of listening. You have to give equal importance to the different types of listening. Sometimes we deter, sometimes we get haywire, we get carried away by other activities. We need to understand that we have to pay our focused attention. But do we understand the difference between hearing and listening? We are going to work out even on those skills. And ultimately, we are going to speak about the good, the good effective listener. What are the qualities that a good listener is going to hone or present? The content of this particular chapter will cover introductory part, the difference between hearing and listening, the type of listening that is being mentioned, the deterrents of the listening process, or factors that help in listening, along with the positive connotation for good listening skills. When we talk about listening, listening is an activity which requires lots of attention and lots of focus. If you do not concentrate and if you do not pay attention, trust me, your listening may become very poor, or you may find it difficult to communicate because of this poor listening skills. How do we avoid this? In order to have the strong command, it is very important to understand that listening is a complete activity. It's a process. And in this process, you have to remember these three keywords: leveling, sharpening, and assimilation. When I say leveling, please correlate it with the kind of soil which we toil, which we cultivate, or whenever we are trying to cultivate the kind of soil that we look forward for. We have to level it. If there are ups and downs, if there are upheavals, it becomes very difficult for us to grow the crop. In similar way, even in our mind, if there are lot many disturbances and if there are lot many confusion, we cannot listen to the things in a proper way. There has to be a proper mindset. There has to be a proper mental level that we have to keep or we have to focus on. Then comes sharpening. You need to understand that this is a skill, and all the skills can be practiced and can be improvised. So you have to work out on improvisation of this skill. And finally, assimilation. When we say listening, there are lots of words, there are lots of expressions, there are lots of emotions, there are lots of ideas. Each and everything need to get connected, and you have to assimilate. If you miss any of the communication or if you miss any part of communication, it becomes very difficult for you to come up with the right answer or to even sort out the query. So therefore, it becomes very important to understand that when we talk about listening, the basic thing that you have to keep in your mind is you need to have a proper mindset. Because if you have a right mindset, certainly you can do wonders with your listening skill. What is the difference between listening and hearing? Generally, people may give different ideas and they may come up with different thoughts. Now, when I say hearing, it's a process of our ears. We all are blessed with 2 ears. And what is the job of this ear? To hear to the different sounds, to hear through the different noises, to hear the different melodies of the nature. But whenever you are hearing, your focus, your concentration, and your attention is unconsciously dragged. It is not a conscious way of listening. The moment once when you are conscious, the moment once when you concentrate, and the moment one you are focused, automatically the hearing changes or steps into the format of listening. So whenever you are listening, in the process of listening, you are concentrating, you are focusing, and the focus is completely on to the speaker's point of view or to the speaker's statement or the kind of information that is shared so that you can understand and then you can interpret. Always remember that whenever we are talking about listening and hearing, people often get confused. They are in fact hearing and they believe that they are listening. You are committing a big crime. In fact, you are killing your learning appetite. You are in fact killing your desire to explore more if you are just hearing to the people. Remember, it is very important to listen to others. And in fact, on an average, we hear 400 words in a minute. Isn't it amazing that you hear so many things and you also convert the hearing into listening by just concentrating and focusing onto the right notes? Coming up to the different types of listening, there are different ways of listening. People can listen passively. Please remember, passive listening will be similar to hearing process, wherein your attention is completely deviated. You are not at all concentrating, you are not at all focusing, and you are just listening it for the sake of listening. Many a times it may happen even in your class. The teacher, whosoever is taking the class, is delivering a topic which is not at all of your interest. What do? You show that you are attentive, but in fact, your mind is into something else. You are mentally engaged with some other activity. Physically, you are present, but mentally, you are absent. And why that mental absence come? Because you started thinking onto something else. And though you are present, you cannot listen because your ears are hearing, but it is not focusing onto the topic. Therefore, passive listening is similar to hearing. Coming up to the next point, marginal. This is a partial listening wherein you listen to some part and you try to avoid or eliminate few of the parts. Say for example, you watched a movie and in that particular movie there is a part, there is an action which is very much close to your heart, or you were completely carried away by that particular action. So what do? The moment you are listening or the moment you are hearing someone speaking about that particular part, you start getting completely attentive. And once that is covered, your mind gets deviated once again. So here you select and you have the option of selecting which part to listen and which part to ignore. So therefore, such kind of listening is called as partial listening. The next one is projective. Here you project, you understand that there is a framework with which the people they deliver. Many a time it happens that we are talking or we are speaking to someone who knows what are our interests, what are our likes, what are our dislikes. And based on our likes and dislikes, you will see that person is paying attention to what you are saying. Why is it he doing so? It is all because of the projective listening. Yes, you heard me right. That kind of listening is called as projective listening, where people come up with a fixed mindset, where people come with a frame of references and they know what to hear and how much to hear and what to ignore. Empathetic listening is one of the major forms of listening. You have to understand that whenever you pay attention to the people and you come up with the perception exactly the same that the receiver is perceiving, such kind of listening is called as empathetic listening. This will help you to gel up with the receiver or to gel up with the sender. Please remember the moment once when you are listening and the listening is effective, wherein the sender could understand the listener's perspective and even the listener could understand the sender's perspective. Such kind of listening is called as empathetic listening. Finally, active listening. As a student, I want you all to understand that this part of listening is very, very important. You have to focus and you need to develop within you the skill of listening that is called as active listening. When do we say it as an active listening? When our mind and our focus is undeterred. We are completely concentrated onto the topic. Our body and mind is completely focused on one particular point, and you come up with the right expressions and right emotions, which in fact gel up or matches exactly with that of the sender. There are no perception. Please remember, if you are creating the perception, that is called as empathetic listening. Here it is not the perception. Here you act exactly in the way the sender or the speaker is willing to get it from the audience. Such kind of listening is called as active listening. I believe that you people now understood that there are different types of listening. And as a good student, and if you really want to become a good manager, you have to focus on active listening. You need to get rid of passive listening. If you believe in passive listening, trust me, you are going to receive only very less or few of the important points in your mind, and ultimately you become a sufferer. So therefore, you have to focus on active listening. Moving ahead, there are certain deterrents to the listening process. What are those deterrents? What are those hindrances? What are those obstacles which we find, which we come across when we are listening? The first one is lack of interest. This is not of my interest area. I don't like talking about politics. I don't like talking about rugby, or I don't like talking about some actors or actresses. If that is not of your interest, you see, your mind gets deviated. But you have to remember, many a times in the corporate world, even if it is not your department, even if it is not your functional area, you have to pay attention. So there cannot be anything which is called as lack of interest. You have to generate interest. How do we generate interest? By showing our interest by our body language. When you start it with your body language, this is a small clue. Start it with a smile. Come up with the small words. Come up with certain words which can really act you or help you in understanding the basic concepts. The next is ego. When we talk about ego, ego is something that really creates problem or that generates problem. The problem is, I don't like him, I don't like her, he knows nothing, I know better than him. This is the state of ego that creates a mental block. I don't want to listen to him, or many a times this is known to me, why should I learn it from him, or why should I listen to him? Such mental blockages should be avoided if we really want to create that effective listening. Wrong tenses, again, if you are listening to something which is grammatically incorrect, usage of wrong tenses, somewhere where the past should be used if someone is talking in present, or if something has to be happened in the future. But if people are talking in the present tense, it creates a wrong illusion, it creates a wrong perception, and then your listening becomes poor. So therefore you need to understand that wrong tenses can also create a problem. Fear: I may fail. People may reject my opinion. Oh, I don't know. What am I listening? Whether am I getting it in a right way or wrong? This can be a problem. So you have to get rid of this. You need to curtail, or you have to say tada goodbye to your fear. Preconceived notions, even this can be very dangerous. So you have to avoid even the preconceived notions. Familiarity trap. This is again a problem. Most of us, we presume that I know this listener, or I know the speaker, I know the way they are going to act, and then we come up with our own conclusions. Don't get into your wrong conclusions. Don't create dilemma not only for yourself as a listener, even this dilemma will be transferred because of your body language to the speaker. So therefore, get rid of the familiarity traps. Then finally, stress. When you are in stress, when you are in trouble, when you have certain problem in your life, you see that you cannot concentrate. Your listening becomes poor. So once when you work out on all these 8 qualities of deterrents to get rid of your poor listening skills, and then to convert the poor listening skills into good listening skills, they can really do miracle in your listening skills. When we talk about factors that help in listening, there are 4 common factors. The first one is sender credibility. Always remember, pay attention to what the sender is saying. Please remember that the speaker is equally in that fear factor like a listener, what you are in. So therefore, if you don't pay attention, the sender will be confused. The sender will be in dilemma. The sender may get the mental block in his mind. He may think that listeners are not listening. So am I speaking rightly or wrong? So therefore, you have to pay attention to what the senders are speaking or what the speaker is speaking. Don't judge anyone. Give value to each and every person. That is what we have studied in the principles of communication. When we talk about the 7 golden rules of principles of communication, we talked about courteous. And how can we be courteous when listening? By paying attention. All our ears should be on the words of the speaker. Build up a positive attitude. If you have the positive attitude, that means I am ready to listen to you. I know this, but let me listen from your point of view. Let me understand what is your intake. How do you perceive this? How do you carry away this? So that develops a positive attitude. Ultimately, if you have a positive attitude, your concentration will automatically strong, and then you can come up with right questions and right answers to the sequence, to the way the speaker had presented his or her communication or the piece of information. Please remember, if you really adhere these factors, you can become a very good speaker. And there are certain positive connotations for the good listening. Your perspective will become wider. You will have lots of knowledge, lots of information. People will respect you because of your listening. You start gaining lots of information. You will always be admired. You will be appreciated. Why people will appreciate? Because you have increased the sense of competency. Because of your listening skills, you have turned into a competent person. Imagine you are attending an interview and you don't have a small piece of information, but you must have attended some or the other guest lecture. You might have gone through some or the other video lecture wherein somebody was speaking about some important topic. Bingo, at that time, your mind, the supercomputer, will come up with a proper solution to whatsoever the person was asking. And then you can come up with a proper answer. You need not read, you can just listen and gain lots of information. This enhances your knowledge, and with the help of your knowledge, it becomes very easy for you to build open mind. Instead of narrow minded, you are going to widen your skills, you are going to widen your knowledge, and you're going to widen your approach. That will even decrease the defensiveness. Most of the time, you will see that people who are difficult to manage are very poor at listening. If you really want to manage difficult people, help them in building the good listening skills. Ultimately, they become the good speakers or even the good listeners. This is the last slide of this particular session. We are going to talk about certain checklists, certain do's that as a good listener we have to follow. First, understand the process of listening. There has to be a process followed by all of us. We start with passive listening, but we have to reach up to the active listening. And how is it possible? Once when you develop positive attitude, once when you generate that interest, once when you show that empathy towards the speaker. Listen carefully for effective communication. Don't be biased and don't be judgmental. Give right amount of information. Remember the quantum of information that we were talking in the last class related to the barriers of communication? Yes, it will be an hindrance in the life, a proper hindrance in the life or in the speaking ability, and then ultimately even the listeners get bored. So therefore, how much to be delivered is one thing which we have to really focus on. Be sensitive to the speakers and appreciate their viewpoint too. Show interest and maintain eye contact. If I'm listening to you, that means I have to show my presence with my eye contact and with a smile. I need to nod my head. I need to show with my body language that yes, I am on the same page. You are speaking and I'm listening to you. If you don't show those small tits and bits, and if you don't prove that you are on the same page with the speaker may take you that you are showing disinterest or you are taking him for granted. So therefore, it is very important to understand the expectations of the speakers too. Accordingly, show your interest and maintain the eye contact. That is the best way of showing you're a higher interest level. Then gauge the intention of the sender. What is it that the speaker is trying to present to you? What is it that the speaker is willing to inform? Whether you understood that particular part or not, do you agree with the point? If you don't agree, don't become judgmental that, oh, he knows now, or he is speaking something which is of no value. You have the chance of questioning at the end. So therefore, pay attention to whatsoever the speaker is willing to convey. And finally, evaluate only after listening to the complete session. Most of us, we stop people in between. We love interferences and we also like to interrupt others. But if you are intervening and interfering, and if you are stopping someone in between, trust me, the person's emotionally he will be shattered, his confidence is going to get shattered, and ultimately you are not going to get the right message conveyed. So therefore, it is always better, or it is suggested, if you really want to become a good listener, let the speaker speak incomplete and then you need to share your opinion only when asked or at the end. So, in our today's session, we discussed about the basic introduction of listening. We understood the difference between hearing and listening. We also understood the various types of listening, and please pay attention. Attentive listening, that is active listening, is very, very important. And if you really want to become a successful manager, you are advised to develop this habit of listening attentively or becoming an active listener. You should also work out on deterrents so that you can get rid of those barriers when you are listening. Come up with the right factors of listening so that you can develop the positive connotation of good listening skills. So, friends, I'm going to come up with another session on another topic. Till then, keep revising and have a great day. Thank you.